when it's on the page, and you have guys like Kurt Russell and Bill Paxton and Val Kilmer. The cast in that film alone, all of them, and a lot of them are gone today.
For more than 3 decades, Tombstone has remained one of Hollywood's most unforgettable westerns. It is the kind of movie that feels larger than life. A story filled with legendary figures, unforgettable dialogue, and performances that became part of pop culture forever. Fans still remember Wyatt Earp's determination, Doc Holliday's dangerous charm, and the intense gunfights that made the movie a modern Western classic. But hidden behind the famous scenes is a story that changes the way many people look at the film. Because according to Sam Elliott, the Tombstone audiences know today is not the movie that was originally supposed to exist. The man who played Virgil Earp witnessed a battle behind the scenes that nearly changed everything. A battle over the script, the characters, and the very identity of the movie itself. While millions of fans celebrate Tombstone as a masterpiece, Elliott knew there was another version of the story buried beneath the surface. One that was bigger, slower, and far more ambitious. And the reason that version disappeared reveals one of the most fascinating secrets in Hollywood history. Before Tombstone became a beloved classic, it was a production that seemed almost impossible to complete. In the early 1990s, Westerns were no longer dominating Hollywood. The genre that once defined American cinema had lost much of its popularity. Studios were focused on other types of movies, and a large-scale Western was considered a risky investment. But screenwriter Kevin Jarre saw something different. Jarre, who had already earned recognition for writing the powerful Civil War drama Glory, created a screenplay that was unlike most Western stories. Instead of focusing only on gunfights and revenge, his script explored the personalities, relationships, and inner conflicts of the people behind the legends. It was a massive story about loyalty, ambition, family, justice, and survival. The script attracted some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Kurt Russell signed on to play Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer took the role of Doc Holliday, and Sam Elliott became Virgil Earp. The cast also included Bill Paxton, Powers Booth, Michael Biehn, Stephen Lang, and many other talented actors. From the beginning, everyone involved believed they were creating something special. They were not making just another cowboy movie. They believed they were making the definitive story of the Earp brothers and the dangerous world surrounding them. But there was a detail about Tombstone that many fans still do not know. Kevin Jarre was not only the writer, he was also supposed to be the director. This was his chance to bring his own vision to the screen, and he approached the project with incredible attention to detail. Jarre wanted the movie to feel authentic in every possible way. He wanted audiences to believe they had stepped into the 1880s. That commitment even extended to the actors' appearances. The cast was encouraged to grow real period-style mustaches based on the way men actually wore them during that era. Those mustaches became a symbol of their dedication to the project. They were not just preparing for a role, they were becoming part of a historical world Jarre was carefully building. But creating a massive period film was much more difficult than anyone expected. A great screenplay does not always translate into an easy production. Jarre had a clear artistic vision. He wanted beautiful landscapes, carefully designed scenes, and a classic Western style inspired by filmmakers of the past. He wanted the movie to have patience and allow the audience to fully understand its characters. The problem was that Hollywood productions do not always move at the speed of imagination. The film involved huge sets, horses, crowds, complicated action sequences, and a large ensemble cast. Every delay became expensive. Every difficult scene created more pressure. Soon, the production began falling behind. The studio became concerned that the movie was becoming too difficult to control. The schedule was slipping, the costs were increasing, and the pressure surrounding the film continued to grow. Then came the decision that almost destroyed the entire project. After only a short time of filming, Kevin Jarre was removed as director. Suddenly, Tombstone was left without the person who had created the entire vision. The cast and crew were now facing an uncertain future. A movie that had attracted incredible talent was suddenly in danger of becoming another unfinished Hollywood disaster. But instead of disappearing, Tombstone entered an even stranger chapter. The studio brought in George P. Cosmatos, a filmmaker known for action movies such as Rambo, First Blood Part 2 and Cobra. Officially, Cosmatos became the director. His name would appear in the credits, and for years audiences accepted that as the complete story. But years later, a shocking behind-the-scenes revelation changed everything. Kurt Russell explained that the reality was much more complicated. According to Russell, after Jarre was fired, he became deeply involved in keeping the production alive. He had already helped secure the financing needed to make the movie, and he felt responsible for making sure it reached the finish line. When the producers needed someone to take control, Russell was asked to step into the director's role. But he refused to take the official credit. Instead, a secret arrangement was created. George Cosmatos would become the public director, while Russell would guide many of the creative decisions behind the scenes. Every night during production, Russell would prepare detailed plans for the next day. He would decide what shots were needed, how scenes should be approached, and what moments were most important to capture. Then those plans would be carried out on set. Russell later said he promised Cosmatos that he would never reveal the arrangement while he was alive. He respected that promise and kept silent for years. Only after Cosmatos passed away did Russell finally discuss what had really happened during the making of Tombstone. But this hidden change in leadership created another major problem. Russell now had to make difficult decisions about the movie's massive screenplay. Kevin Jarre's original script was enormous. It contained many storylines, detailed character moments, and scenes that expanded the world beyond Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. But with the production already struggling, Russell believed the movie needed to become more focused. So the cuts began. Large sections of the screenplay were removed. Some characters lost important moments. Entire pieces of the original story disappeared. Russell's goal was to create a tighter, more emotional movie built around the relationship between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. To him, that friendship was the true heart of Tombstone. It was a relationship built on trust, loyalty, and an understanding between two men who could not have been more different. But focusing on that bond meant sacrificing other parts of the story. And while many members of the cast accepted those changes, one actor believed something important was being destroyed. That actor was Sam Elliott, and his reaction to the disappearing pages of the original script became one of the most famous stories from the making of Tombstone. Sam Elliott was not against making changes to Tombstone. He understood that filmmaking required compromise. He knew movies often had to be adjusted because of budgets, schedules, and the realities of production. But he believed there was a difference between making changes and removing the very things that gave the story its heart. While other actors accepted that parts of Kevin Jarre's original screenplay had to be sacrificed, Elliott struggled to watch important character moments disappear. He had read the original version of the script, and he knew how much depth was hidden inside those pages. For him, Tombstone was never supposed to be only about famous gunfights and legendary quotes. It was supposed to be about the people behind those legends. Sam Elliott's character, Virgil Earp, was one of the roles most affected by the changes. In the original vision, Virgil was more than just Wyatt Earp's older brother. He was the man who represented responsibility and justice. He was the one who carried the burden of bringing order to a place where violence had become normal. The quieter scenes that showed Virgil's personality, his struggles, and his beliefs were exactly the type of moments that were being reduced or removed. And Elliott noticed. According to stories from the production, when discussions began about cutting more of his dialogue, Elliott made his position very clear. He jokingly but seriously warned that if they removed even one word from his character's lines, there would be consequences. To outsiders, it might sound like an actor protecting his own role. But that was not what was happening. Elliott was not demanding more attention for himself. He was fighting for the story he believed in. He felt that those missing scenes were the emotional foundation of the movie. Without them, audiences would see the action, but they would miss the deeper connections between the characters. Years later, Elliott explained how much he admired Kevin Jarre's original screenplay. He believed it was one of the strongest scripts he had ever encountered. And he revealed something that surprised many fans. If he had been offered only the shortened version of the script from the beginning, he might have never accepted the role of Virgil Earp. That statement shows just how different the final movie was from the original dream. The Tombstone audiences received became a fast-moving, energetic Western filled with memorable performances. But Elliott believed the movie had lost some of the emotional material that made the original screenplay special. He believed the missing scenes were the connective tissue of the story. They were the moments between the famous events, the conversations, the personal struggles, and the relationships that transformed historical figures into real human beings. And Sam Elliott was not alone in feeling that something had been lost. Even Kurt Russell, the person who pushed for many of the changes, later admitted that the original version of Tombstone was something much bigger. Russell described Kevin Jarre's screenplay as almost like a Western version of The Godfather. That comparison was not made lightly. The Godfather is considered one of the greatest films ever created, and Russell believed Jarre's script had that same level of depth and ambition. Stephen Lang, who played Ike Clanton, also praised the original screenplay and agreed that it was far more expansive than what audiences eventually saw. The people who made Tombstone were essentially saying that hidden inside the production was another movie, one that might have become one of the greatest Westerns ever made. But circumstances worked against them. A director was removed. The schedule became impossible. The budget created pressure. A huge screenplay had to be transformed into something that could actually be completed. And that is what makes the story so fascinating. The movie that fans love today was created because people were willing to make painful sacrifices. But those same sacrifices are the reason some of the filmmakers still wonder what could have been. For years, fans have hoped that a longer version of Tombstone could someday appear. There have been discussions about unused footage and whether the missing pieces of Kevin Jarre's vision could be restored. The idea of seeing a more complete version of the movie has fascinated audiences for decades. A version with more character development, more emotional moments, more of the story that Sam Elliott believed deserved to exist. But until that happens, that dream remains unfinished. And the story of Tombstone becomes even more interesting when you realize how many things almost happened differently. Val Kilmer's legendary performance as Doc Holliday nearly went to another actor. Before Kilmer took the role and created one of the most iconic characters in Western history, Willem Dafoe was considered for the part. But studio concerns prevented that casting choice, allowing Kilmer to step into the role that would define part of his career. There were other possible versions of the movie as well. At one point, different casting ideas were considered that could have completely changed the chemistry of the film. Kurt Russell could have played Doc Holliday, while another actor might have portrayed Wyatt Earp. If that had happened, the unforgettable relationship between Wyatt and Doc that became the emotional center of Tombstone would have been completely different. The film also faced competition from another Wyatt Earp project being developed around the same time. Hollywood had two major westerns telling similar stories, and there was uncertainty about which one would connect with audiences. Many people believed Tombstone had too many obstacles standing in its way. A troubled production, a missing director, a rewritten screenplay, a shrinking budget, and a rival movie competing for attention. Yet somehow Tombstone survived. When the movie arrived in theaters in 1993, it surprised Hollywood. Instead of becoming another forgotten Western, it connected with audiences and slowly transformed into a classic. The irony is that the very changes Sam Elliott fought against may have helped create the movie people know today. By removing the extra storylines and focusing on Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, Kurt Russell helped create a film that moved quickly and kept audiences engaged from beginning to end. The movie became unforgettable because it was focused. Every scene mattered. Every character had impact. Every line felt powerful. So who was right? Was Sam Elliott right to fight for the larger, deeper version of Tombstone? Or was Kurt Russell right to cut the story down and save the movie from collapse? The truth is that both men were fighting for something important. Elliott was protecting the soul of the original screenplay. He saw the emotional masterpiece that existed before the cuts. Russell was protecting the possibility that Tombstone would actually reach audiences. One man fought for the movie that could have been. The other fought for the movie that still had a chance to exist. And that is the secret many fans never discovered. When people watch Tombstone today, they are not just watching a Western. They are watching the result of a behind-the-scenes battle filled with impossible choices, creative disagreements, and sacrifices made by an entire cast and crew. The movie is not simply remembered because of its action. It is remembered because something about it survived. Every legendary performance, every unforgettable scene, and every famous line exists because people fought to keep the film alive. Sam Elliott did not just play Virgil Earp. He became the person who refused to let the original vision disappear without a fight. He fought for the words. He fought for the characters. He fought for the emotional depth that made him believe in the story from the beginning. And maybe that is why Tombstone continues to feel special decades later. Because behind the gunfights and the legends is another story, the story of a movie that almost became something completely different. The Tombstone audience's love today may not be the full version Sam Elliott imagined, but it is the version that survived. And somewhere in the lost pages, deleted scenes, and unseen footage remains the movie that everyone involved still wonders about.